Hello, here is Alexander Efremov, a simple Soviet engineer. Today, we're going to talk about product data management from the systems engineering perspective, through the ISO 42010 standard and respective architecture description concept. Imagine there is a company that has been successfully developing and delivering products for a long time, and it is still doing so. Be that the mechatronic products. Let's take power steering as an example. As far as our company has been on the market for a long time, it is not necessary to develop the wheel every time for every customer order. The architecture of the power steering is pretty much clear to us. And it is clear which department should do what, in what order, to meet customer needs. Let's mention a few to keep our example specific. Marketing gathers customer needs and requirements. Project managers take care of the budget and the project plan. Purchasing department takes care of the purchase of commercial off-the-shelf goods. Engineers define system requirements and design with modeling and simulation. Logistics department ensures that things are delivered in a timely and consistent manner. Sure, there are other interested parties or stakeholders in our company, but we remain with these 5 for our example to keep it relatively simple. As far as we are in the digital world, all the stakeholders mentioned are producing different data on paper as well as in the digital form in a variety of formats. All of this data describes the evolving product, power steering in our example, from different viewpoints. Each of these viewpoints is equally important to successfully meet the needs of the customer. And as far as all these data describe the same power steering, which is ultimately delivered successfully, this data is somehow linked. Paper documents have important ID references to other documents and files. Models also contain references to each other. In the plans, it is also clear what needs to be done with which parts of the power steering. So there are such relationship descriptions that allow those stakeholders to do their job successfully. Now comes a need for market analysis. In order to remain successful in the market, our company must implement customer requirements much faster. What does that mean for us as an enterprise architect? That every change request must be clearly reflected as quickly as possible for all stakeholders. For logisticians, how to deliver; for project managers, how this change will influence the budget and plans; for purchasing department, what to buy; for engineers, what else to develop. How can you ensure such a change of the company? There are different solutions, or there may be different solutions. A clear and now popular solution would be digitalize. But what to digitalize? And how? All at once? Or with small steps? And if with small steps, then in what order? Someone can suggest all outcomes of the work and all relationships must be managed in a single IT system. Another one says, I've solved such a similar problem in another company. You have to restructure those 2 departments differently and support them with such an IT system, and then engineers have to do their work with following tools, and then everything will be fine. The third one can suggest agile methods. You have to remove all the departments, introduce Scrum principles, and change the mindset of all employees. Then your enterprise will become a paradise. All of these suggestions are similar in the following. They do not take into account the needs and the current state of the specific enterprise and have no framework, no method in the background. Applying each of these methods is the same as taking a can of tomatoes, cucumbers, and greens and shaking them vigorously, hoping to get a delicious salad at the end of this action without cutting vegetables by a certain method and without adding a dressing. So we need a method here. A good and well-known method from a systems engineering standpoint is described in the ISO 42010 standard. This standard is dedicated to the topic architecture descriptions of a system. What does this standard tell us? This standard tells us that there are several interested parties or stakeholders who have their concerns about the system. Every system has its architecture, although it may be not clearly described. To create the architecture description of a system, that is, to holistically describe fundamental properties or concepts of a system embodied in its elements, relationships, and design principles. What is our goal in this case? We want to know clearly how change request will influence our system, so its properties, its relationships, and its elements. One must look at the system from the viewpoints of the interested parties. It is precisely the interested parties and their concerns about the system that define which relationships and which elements are essential. What do you have to do with a company which develops, produces, and delivers the power steering and wants to implement the change requests faster? Here is the recipe, with a framework in the background that allows not to forget the peculiarities of the company. You have to define critical stakeholders. Then you have to clarify their representatives, and with these representatives, what concerns they have with regard to the product, from which viewpoints they look at the product, which means with which templates and which IT systems they describe their aspects of the power steering, and how are the descriptions of their aspect associated with descriptions of other stakeholders. When such a picture, which can also be called description of the architecture of a system, becomes clearer, you can define modules according to the picture, prioritize them, and implement them step by step. So if necessary, restructure something, introduce new methods, digitize something, and always have the whole thing under control. This requires company change projects with a certain budget, planning, capable team, and support from critical stakeholders in the company.